we have this attitude where, like, of course we have to be there to preserve freedom, right? But it's like, but why are we there, really? What?
Is that a genuine question? Does he not know? I can't tell when Hasan's being serious or just being, you know, sassy.
Oh, the U.S. military is planning for a war with China. Oh, here we go again, dude. You know, listen, Johnny Harris had to do one good video so he could do like 10 ones where he's like,
let's invade Taiwan.
Here's why Taiwan needs to be defended with military force and perhaps nuclear weapons. You know what I mean? You got to expect that, like the top of the hour.
Okay, so his position is that we should just abandon Taiwan then. How is his position then like functionally that different from like, I mean, this is like what the Chinese government, like functionally there's no difference. Like policy-wise, there's no difference. I mean, it's not even that defend Taiwan. He doesn't want to defend Taiwan in any capacity. He doesn't want to sell them weapons. He doesn't want bases. He doesn't want run a blockade. He wants that. Literally just Taiwan. Your security is 90% dependent upon the threat of America getting involved if China was to invade you. Fuck it. It is America's presence that has preserved a state, not a state of loving peace, but a general state of stability, and has continued the status quo that Hasan himself acknowledges that the majority of Taiwanese people appreciate and want. And we should continue that status quo because it's the safest bet to preserve as many lives as possible. And it's the safest bet to preserve Taiwanese independence and freedom. There are other interests at play. There always are in politics. But if he's genuinely interested in what he said in the Ethan conversation of, oh yeah, well, if they were to vote for independence and they wanted it, then yeah, they should get that. Then how do they get it without the assistance of another country that can back them and support them and act as a security guarantor? And I mean, that's how many countries in the world have to operate. They have to operate with the idea that they need a security guarantor to help them. Great example, Armenia right now. Now that Russia has failed as a security guarantor because it wanted to go gallivanting around in Europe, rebuilding empire, now Armenia doesn't have an ally to defend them. And since Armenia doesn't have an ally to defend them, Azerbaijan could put the whole country in a noose and invade, whether to establish a corridor between the Azerbaijani enclave that is behind Armenian territory, whether it's what they're doing right now in Nagorno-Karabakh, or entering Armenian internationally recognized territory, which is something they've already done. So without a security guarantor, Armenia was fucked. And without a security guarantor, Taiwan is fucked. We are that security guarantor. That is the responsibility that has been put on our shoulders by our elected officials that we duly elected. And that was done in response to the executive branch, the president, trying to run roughshod on our policy with China and our policy on Taiwan. It was the Congress, time and time again, who intervened during the Carter administration, intervened during other administrations as well, during Eisenhower's administration, to try to shore up support for Taiwan when the executive branch kind of wanted to abandon them. That has only really changed in recent years, that both the executive branch and the legislative branch have kind of gotten in lockstep to support Taiwan, and it's gotten a lot easier now that Taiwan isn't a brutal, brutal dictatorship.
Break, you know what I mean? In Brazil, socialist people call North Korea as Popular Korea or People's Korea. I don't know the real translate. Sorry, ha ha ha.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
Like, I'm going to start calling it Popular Korea.
Yeah. It's actually not that bad of a video. Well, you know what's not that bad of a video? The top of the hour ad break, as long as you're subscribed, because in that case, you don't see those ads. Here is the 3-minute ad break now. Boom. Blammo.
I feel like the majority of people who watched our North Korea video were Brazilian. Like, all the top comments are from Brazil. I don't know what the whole North Korea-Brazil solidarity thing is, but you guys love each other. Oh, no.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh, dude, delete this. Is Hasan CIA beanie? Are they the same person? CIA, dude, delete this. I wore it one time. Stop. Guys, no.
Sorry, his humor's just not for me. Can we get to the actual, like, video or something?
And a phony. I agree. All right, let's do this one. Let's start with this.
There's a small volcanic island
videos
off
are
the
so
southern coast
beautiful.
of Japan.
Yeah, he's
called
so good at
Fukushima.
editing. You always got to hand it to him, okay?
Nobody lives here. But here's footage from January 2023 of construction workers arriving to this island. Their task is to build a couple of runways on the island and some storage facilities for ammunition. The Japanese government has been paying local fishermen to stay away from this island. That's because they're turning it into a military base. The island is being built by Japan, but one of its main purposes,
Which is very cool and good. I sure hope China's not doing that. Because if they are doing that, then that's not cool and not good. Not good. Not good or nor.
has to do
But that's the concept of, I guess, escalation.
with the United States. American fighter jets and aircraft carriers have had to do their drills and practices down here on this island.
What?
But now
That's so
they're
far
able
away.
to station at this island, moving them much closer
God.
to this ocean and to one country in particular.
China.
Magashima is just one of many islands that are being loaded up with military hardware, most of it coming from the United States. It's part of this chain of militarized islands, an effort of defense
Militarized
or
islands.
aggression, depending on how you look at it. It's a line that centers on Taiwan. And it's what one official was referring to when they said that 2023 is likely to stand
By the way, Janet Yellen is currently in China today, talking to them about God knows what.
as the most transformative year in U.S. force posture in this region in a generation. This line is a symbol of the rising tensions between global superpowers, and I want to show you why this is happening now and what it means for the future of this conflict.
This is unlike anything the U.S. Navy has done since World War II.
Tensions are rising in one of the most hotly contested regions on the planet, the South China Sea.
It was actually Johnny Harris videos that made me start doing... No, it was Johnny Harris and Good Times, Bad Times that made me start using the map editing software, having my editor use it so we can have maps during our videos to show where in Ukraine we are when we're doing reports from different locations. It is very pretty.
Why? Why? Why is it one of the most hotly contested places on the planet?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. One of the reasons is because the Chinese government claims the South China Sea and a bunch of islands, disputing territorial claims, and many of them upheld by international courts of Vietnam, the Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia, Taiwan. Did I already say Taiwan? Japan. Basically, any country in the region. They have a territorial dispute with China because they've made a ridiculous territorial claim that falls upon Filipino fishermen, falls upon Vietnamese fishermen, falls upon people all across the region. And of course, they claim the entirety of the island of Taiwan, saying that if they can't get it back by peaceful means, they'll take it back by force. And for the people in Taiwan who fought very hard against a very oppressive dictatorship for the democracy, that's something that's going to cause some tension. Definitely when they look for Hong Kong as what would be the, representative model of what would probably be offered to them, since the Chinese constantly say that their offer to Taiwan is one country, two systems. And what that led to in Hong Kong was people being arrested for booing the Chinese national anthem, people disappearing in the middle of the night, in an extremely politically repressive atmosphere where the government handpicks your political candidates, which is not, well, a democracy I think I would be in favor of, and it seems the majority of Taiwanese people agree. And then there's American security interests. Now, security interest is a buzzword. It's something you're probably going to hear in any DoD PowerPoint presentation. So I don't like to use this term, but I'm going to avoid using buzzword terms. As for U.S. interests, Taiwan produces how many microchips I think it's like 40 to 50% of some of the most advanced microchips in the world that prop up not only the American economy, but quite frankly, the world economy. And I think I'm underselling it because in some of the the highest level, highest quality microchips, they're producing more than the majority, 70, 80% of it. And so for the American economy, which is highly reliant on microchips, and for the economy of much of the world, an invasion of Taiwan would be an utter disaster. And Taiwan is using that leverage to get more support for its security interests. There's also an ideological battle, which I think is sometimes underplayed, but I do think it exists, that there are people in Taiwan who want to defend their democracy, and there are lobbyists in the United States and activists in the United States who have been pushing for years, since Taiwan has transitioned into a democracy, to defend the island from the encroachment of an authoritarian style of government that the locals do not want. And I believe that it is the locals who should be able to determine their self-governance. I'm sure China probably also would like all those microchips. They probably would like access to a lot of that technology. China also doesn't like the idea of having an American ally so close to them. There also is a lot of nationalistic reasons in China. I mean, there's so many different elements to this. I'm not even talking about trade and the element of how much. I think 1/3 of the global trade passes through the South China Sea. So if China has domination of the South China Sea, as it has been trying to establish through harassing fishermen, ramming other countries' boats, doing just like taking out, I don't know if you've seen these videos, but they'll like take out hoses and start like hosing down fishermen. Very strange activity. That's so they can enforce their claim over the South China Sea, which has, I think, 1/3 of global trade pass through it. And if there's anything America loves, it's 1/3 of global trade. So those are probably some of the different interests at play, but there's a lot of interests at play. I hope Hasan and this other person gives I think a good, balanced rundown. I'm sure they will. I'm believing in them.
A question we must ask ourselves. Like, I'm sorry, I always have to ask, why is America there? Like, no, I know that we have this attitude where, like, of course we have to be there to preserve freedom, right? But it's like, but why are we there, really?
Is that a genuine question? Does he not know? Did he jump into this video not knowing? Or maybe this video is good for him because he doesn't know. I can't tell when Hasan's being serious or just being, sassy.
But what's up with that?
Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense from Boy. So that was their explanation as to we're there maybe to defend freedom. Nah, that sounds stupid. Why are we really there? Makes no sense statement from Boy. Great breakdown there. I got some good analysis.
Hey, gonna pause the story really quick to tell you
Headspace.
about
BetterHelp.com.
BetterHelp.
back into this important story. Here we go.
There would be tension without the U.S.
By the way, they made a compliment on Johnny putting a time bar for his ads. It's beautiful. I'm doing time bars for all of my main channel videos. I don't like putting ads on my Ukraine journalism because it feels weird to have like, hey, you just listened to this guy describe his village getting burned down. That's pretty traumatic. You know who can help you with trauma? BetterHelp. Like, I don't want to. But maybe one day, if I can find a way to do it appropriate and have the right sponsors, maybe Ground News. I know Ground News made me an offer back in the day. Maybe if they come knocking again, I'll listen. But it is good when content creators make a time bar for the ad, so you just quickly skip. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Though, no, they're
Ukrainian ration review. It depends on where you get the rations from, if they're any good. Rations I've eaten have been quite nice. I got like, what was it? Corn and beef. I liked it. It was simple, but it was good.
What? No, there wouldn't.
Look, islands just militarize themselves,
Okay,
Eventually.
so this document from the U.S. Department of Defense.
Also, can I just say, because we're going to be talking about like probably a lot of military strategy here, or I don't know how long we're going to be watching this. I am getting kind of tired, and we only have like an hour left if I really wanted to push this. But I just wanted to quickly say, if there is a path to decrease tensions with the Chinese while also preserving Taiwanese sovereignty, that path should be taken. If that means us making an agreement with them to deconstruct our military bases, some of ours in the region, in return for them deconstructing theirs in the region, whether it's, we pull back maybe some troops from this area and they pull back their investment of military infrastructure, and I am 100% in favor of doing that. I'd love to have a gigantic conference between Joe Biden and Xi, and they could compliment how they're both really, really old, And they're like, aren't you, I'm an old leader, whatever it is, that old people of their age, they can all eat rice pudding in a circle and talk about how to bring peace. I would love that. But if that comes at the consequence of abandoning 25 million people who depend on us for their sovereignty to be intact, I'm not willing to make that compromise.
This document is called the National Defense Strategy of the United States of America, which also includes the Nuclear Posture Review and Missile Defense Review. It's basically a report that they release every 4 years that gives us an understanding of what the U.S. military is up to, what they care about.
Like China and who would have tension without the U.S.? Imagine
it would be the Philippines, Vietnam, maybe not Brunei. Brunei couldn't really do anything. They probably just have to bowl over. Malaysia, Japan would probably still have some tensions with China, both historical and modern. South Korea has some tensions with China, not as much as other states, but they still have tensions with China. India is probably one of the biggest. They have border skirmishes. Their soldiers beat each other with sticks. Yeah, there'd be plenty of other nations.
US.
I mean, part of the reason why we're having Joe Biden go to Vietnam being like, isn't Vietnam great, Jack? Is because the Vietnamese distrust the Chinese more than they distrust the Americans. And that's after we like flatten half their country and their people are still every once in a while blowing up from like old discarded munitions. That just goes to show, there's not a very positive feelings across that border.
Involvement in that region. What you think the Filipinos are going to rise up against the Chinese or something? Like what
Well, no, they wouldn't like rise up. The Philippines versus China, yeah, they'd probably get clocked. But I would also say, number one, that's bad that China, if there was no one to oppose them, could just enforce their will on all their neighbors because they're big and strong. I don't think might makes right. And so them having other actors they can go to and they can hedge their bets on, and they can say, well, China, you offered me this trade deal that's kind of, very, not fair, but the Americans offered me this trade deal, so I'm going to bring it to you and maybe you'll make me a better one. Or, hey, they made this agreement to defend Filipino sovereignty. Hey, why shouldn't I just go with them instead of taking your deal? That's good for the countries in the region. And my question to Hasan would be, what's the favorability ratings of both China and the United States when you poll Filipinos, when you poll the Japanese, when you poll South Koreans, when you poll the Taiwanese, when you poll the Vietnamese, when you poll the Malaysians? How do they view these two geopolitical partners and which one they would rather work with? I think it's good for them to have multiple options. I just don't want those multiple options to spiral out into a war.
do you think is going to happen? Motherfuckers be like, Japan? Really? Okay. Like, current day Japan? No, we're not talking about India, okay? We're talking about that part of the world. China is massive, so obviously... disregard India, Disregard India. There's tension.
They couldn't work with anyone else there. But, I mean, again, these nation states are working with the United States to protect their own interests. Why is that bad?
On all sides, but even then, even with India.
But
by the way, that's the only way small nation states can protect their interests. What is Vietnam supposed to do? Is Vietnam's stance just supposed to be, we're small, they're big, it is what it is? I mean, is that how they won the Vietnam War and they beat our ass left, right, and center?
This year's is more detailed than normal. The document focuses a lot on China.
If China threatens our sovereignty, concerns directly with China.
The DoD says that China, quote, remains our most consequential strategic competitor for coming decades. Why? Because, the Pentagon says, China is bullying its neighbors to, quote, reshape the region and the international system to fit its authoritarian preferences. Now, remember, the United States, who spends loads on its military, has set
they just hate democracy.
That's what fuck. I was thinking, like, what is China trying to do? Oh, they're trying to stop the Indian democratic process from taking root, or the Philippines.
I mean, that is what they're going to do in Taiwan. But putting that aside, they are bullying their neighbors. That isn't to say that there isn't also authoritarianism in the region, but they are bullying their neighbors.
Filipino democratic process from maintaining its blossoming democracy.
Okay, I don't know. Look, the Filipino democratic process is not fantastic, but it's certainly more democratic than the process in China.
Or
I think just the idea of a Filipino person voting is just like so hard to deal with for a
yeah,
Chinese person.
they hate that, dude. Fuck it, Japan. The democratic process in Japan, like a functionally one-party state that America designed. Okay,
there is a functioning democracy in Japan. I don't know. Is he saying that it's not a democracy because the party keeps winning? Okay, so is the question? So does he believe that like Japan's the reason that party keeps holding on to power is because they rig it, or what's his allegation about Japanese democracy? There's a lot of problems with Japanese society, but they are a functioning democracy.
Like, it's always funny to think about these countries. Like, I love Japan. You guys know this is not a...
There's like levels to this, right? There's not... It isn't like 100% like anarchist, like freedom-loving, like everything's voted on, from every tax bill to every trade agreement is voted on by every citizen in the town council like it's ancient Greece, or Hitler. Like there are levels to this.
A fucking it's not a meme.
But also, of course, it isn't just like America is in the region fighting for freedom. That isn't the only interest the United States has, obviously.
But let's be real. Like, these are all client states. Client states with an effectively one-party form of governance that you would never consider a democracy by like Western standards. You know what I mean?
Japan isn't a democracy? By what Western standards is Japan not a democracy? What? What the fuck is he talking about? He's a streamer. He's 100% been to Japan, did the whole and did the whole... Did I learn nothing about the country I was in there? Did he just go to like anime conventions? Like massage parlors? Whatever. There's a lot of problems with Japanese society. The criminal justice system, something I would point to, but it is a functioning democracy. And here's a question. Is China or Japan more democratic? Simple question. Neither one. Taiwan and China. Neither one. Philippines and China. All these countries have their own problems in their societies. No country is perfect. But if we're comparing like how democratic these systems are, and one system like has actual elections, not just restricted to party members of one party. There are elections in Japan of communists. Communists. They're allowed to get elected in Japan.
Anyway, it's just
rules for our global order, how we trade.
Let me ask a question. Is there any like what's the opposition looking like in China? Can I ask about that? What is the opposition looking like in China in comparison to like the opposition in Japan? Do you think the opposition in Japan can voice its opposition more or less? I mean, when you look at Japanese society, its prime minister was shot and killed in broad daylight with a Fallout 4 ass shotgun. And then in the next month, the collective decision of Japanese society was like, kind of deserved it. I feel like if this was as authoritarian as a system as, you know, I'm being led to believe, that wouldn't be the narrative that would, you know, bubble up.
Is occurred.
Dorono has donated $10. What's wrong with Japan's criminal justice system? Honest question.
Just Google, like, Japan conviction rate. Anyway, let's continue.
Political systems we favor, who participate.
Thanks for the $10. You probably can learn it better from somebody else. I read about it, like, a while ago.
participates in the system, and now we see a country that wants to dethrone them, to create a new system based on other values and other rules.
Yeah. Unlike...
And what scares the US military is that China is rapidly modernizing and expanding their military. China's military is growing incredibly fast. Like, they deploy the equivalent of an entire new British Navy every 4 years. Every 4 years is like
What's the British Navy?
British Navy. Like new Royal Navy every 4 years. Yeah, they're just growing very quickly.
I don't like how that's phrased though, because they say it as if like the ships that they are producing are of either the same quality or are the same like style of the ships. Because if that was true, then wouldn't that include things like aircraft carriers? But I think they're just talking about total amount of ships, right? And a lot of the total amount of ships that are being deployed are much smaller ships. It's just based on tonnage. Oh, huh. So yeah, I think it's just that they're like, you know, this. I'm not a big League guy. No, it wasn't League. What's the other one that even used to play? StarCraft? It's like Zerg spamming or whatever. Like they're just spamming out a lot of units. But still, I'm not saying it's nothing. I'm just saying it's not like they're spamming out a Navy of the quality and of the standards and of the same equipment of the Royal Navy every 4 years. But of tonnage, that I can believe.
This report is concerned about China's growing strength and military footprint.
Again, like, we're scared of Chinese military footprint growing because they're growing and have a defensive posture against who? Against American client states and
a defensive posture against Taiwan. Is that what the Chinese have? They have a defensive posture against Taiwan, as they actively say that they will either absorb Taiwan through diplomatic, peaceful means, or if that cannot be achieved, because say the Taiwanese are like, no, we like our democracy, then forceful, violent means, invasion. An invasion in one of the, if you take out the mountainous regions, we're talking about one of the most population dense countries in the world. We're talking about places like Taipei. A bombing campaign would be absolutely horrific. Horrific. I don't think that that's just defensive. I don't believe their assertive claims on territory in the South China Sea. I don't think that's defensive either. The territorial claims they're making are absolutely ridiculous. In fact, Vietnam, the Philippines, I don't know if he's going to say Vietnam is an American client state. These countries are disputing these claims for good reason. And in the Philippines case, when we're talking about the Scarborough Shoal, they went to international court over it, and they lost. The Chinese did. You want to know what the Chinese did after they lost? They just deployed some naval vessels off the Scarborough Shoal, forced all the fishermen who have been fishing there for generations to leave, and said they would only return upon an agreement made with the Chinese government. You're going to have the Philippines recognize the sovereignty of... It's not... He's portraying the Chinese posture as completely defensive and the American posture as completely aggressive, because he's just looking at these different countries as just extensions of the United States, not as independent actors with their own interests, with their own desires, who are partnering with the United States to defend those interests. It's actually... This viewpoint actually explains to me how he came to his position on Ukraine so quickly, and why it was so incorrect. It just kind of completely disregards, or maybe not disregards, but at least doesn't look at the autonomy of these places and that the fact that they come to these decisions. If Taiwan wanted to, tomorrow they could say, we are not buying any more American guns. We are not going to take any more American aid shipments. We are rejoining with the mainland. If Vietnam wanted to, and they've done it before, and they did it very violently before they kicked our ass, they could tell us to fuck off. In that recent meeting Joe and the leader of Vietnam had, could have just not happened. Same thing with any of these countries. In fact, at one point, the Philippines were close to kicking out all of the American bases in the Philippines. Then they reversed that policy. It's just, he's viewing all these countries, he's just calling them client states, he's disregarding their sovereignty. It's honestly kind of an imperial mindset.
American Navy that's there, okay? Thousands of miles away from the U.S. coastline. What the fuck?
Wait, there aren't any big American cities in China? I thought there was like some melt. Where's Denver?
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, it might as well be China. It might as well be in China. It's close.
Is this what I sound like when I get sarcastic on stream? I'm gonna try to do that less. Pretentious it sounded.
881 bases around the planet. Yeah, I mean, technically, if you consider it that way, China is bordering the United States of America.
Those bases.
If you think about Taiwan as like an American base, then, you know, all of a sudden things get real spicy.
Reminder, we have no American bases in Taiwan.
How China is coercing its neighbors, disregarding ocean boundaries, testing missiles.
Why is he laughing? That's just a fact. Wait, we're gonna pretend that China testing those missiles off the coastlines of those countries is not coercion? That them ramming boats and scaring off Filipino fishermen isn't coercion? You can't just like giggle and think you made a point. I don't know what. Whatever.
Bullying fishing vessels in other countries.
Like, this entire video is only we get to do that, and not even in our back.
He hasn't even finished. He hasn't even gotten to the Chinese perspective. The video has just started. At whatever
yard, which
Just
we already did that,
neighbors.
but other people's backyards.
Hasan, champion of jumping the gun.
We get to do that in, and you can't do that.
Countries' waters, building islands and military bases on those islands.
China's building
and
islands?
flying over other countries' airspace, and especially in Taiwan.
I knew
the
it.
Island that China.
I mean, it's true. There is hypocrisy here. We do engage in coercion as well. I just want to acknowledge that as well. But we do engage in coercion. We do engage in bad actions. Those bad actions should be checked. They should be undone. We've done that against multiple countries. Cuba is an example of that. I just want to throw that out there. Cuba, Pakistan is an example of someone we've been doing that to recently. Very bad what we've done to Pakistan. It's just It's unbelievably anti-democratic. What's another country that we've done this to? Well, anyway, there's Cuba, Pakistan. Point is, we've done it too. But if China went to, say, Pakistan and supported them against American interference in their elections or their internal systems, I wouldn't say, oh, that's horrible, that's terrible. That would be good. For example, the Russians. I don't think anybody's under the assumption that I like the Russians. I thought that them acting as a security guarantor for the Armenians, that they had some leverage to look after the safety of those in Nagorno-Karabakh. I thought that was a good thing. But the Russians, and their ambitions for empire, disregarded their allies. Not only Armenia, but others as well. Went on this mission into Ukraine and has now fucked it all up.
Claims as their own, and where the globe
Also
gets
that we
nearly
claim
all of
as
their advanced
China's.
microchips, which is a topic I made an entire.
Okay, to be fair, yeah, as Alexa also pointed out, it's not just China that claims that it is Chinese. It's the United States of America that also has maintained that same position since motherfucking Nixon, which is a position that they have routinely lied about. And it's not just me saying this, like, this is very clearly the American foreign policy. The very clear American foreign policy has always been, it's China. It has some level of autonomy from China, but they call it strategic ambiguity, where they were not supposed to, from its inception, as an anti-communist military dictatorship that was like completely psychotic, all the way to the modern democratic process that you see in Taiwan. America's position went from...
Wait, I thought it was a client state. How can it be both a democracy and a... That's a good question, actually. How can it be both just like a client state of the U.S. and also a democracy? You would assume if it's a democracy, then they're choosing their futures. The thing is, I guess... When I say client state and when Hasan says client state, I assume we might mean different things, right? Because when I think of the word client state, I of the idea that this nation state is that nation state's bitch. It's gonna do whatever it wants. It is basically like a puppet. That is how I often hear the word referred to. Now, if it's just saying this nation state uses Taiwan uses the United States' influence and power to protect itself, and it becomes a client state because it is in part reliant on that support for strategic interests, I guess we can use it that way. But I don't know which way he's using it.
No, actually, KMT Taiwan, that is literally China, okay? And like the entire the Western territory that is mainland China belongs to Taiwan, as a matter of fact. Okay, never mind, maybe the communists aren't so bad. It quite literally is, Taiwan is still China. It just has like a different system, and that has been our position.
It's like 50% of the vote in Taiwan often goes to the like legacy KMT guys who still think they're China.
Yeah,
like especially the bigger and stronger China gets, it like tickles these old nationalists.
Yeah, but I mean that's like
what? Okay, very few. There are very few people in Taiwan today that would openly espouse like reuniting and wanting to reunite with mainland China. Even within the KMT, that is a pretty unbelievably taboo thing to say, right? Now, there are those who still identify as Chinese. They still identify as like, yeah, we're China, but we're like a different type of China, or like, but there's none like calling for like reconquest of the mainland. They want to preserve their political sovereignty, independence, and their democracy and the system of government that they've developed. And the Taiwanese culture and identity continues to develop without China. Young people especially feeling very culturally distinct from, the people who came to the islands 60, 70 years ago, and from the people who have been living under a totally different system, went through a cultural revolution, everything in mainland China. There's a lot of political differences there. Obviously, there will be over a 70, 80-year divide. There was a political transformation within Taiwan that brought civil liberties and brought democracy. That has not happened in mainland China, and it seems further away than ever. So it is true that there are people who still identify as Chinese in Taiwan, and there are also people in Taiwan who still view them as like the real China, etc. But moving forward, the Taiwanese identity is going to dominate more and more and more, and it's most evident through Tsai Ing-wen, who's the current president of Taiwan, and has stated that Taiwan doesn't need to declare independence because Taiwan is already independent. And I think it's a pretty cheeky response, because if they were to declare independence, the Chinese would bomb them into the fucking ground and invade and conquer. That's at least what the Chinese government says. If they would actually do that, we don't know for sure, but we have good reason to believe that they would do that. And so they've avoided doing that. So what was their solution? Well, we've already done it. I mean, look at us. We already are independent. We already have our own currency. We have our own anthem, our own flag, our own laws, our own elected representatives, our own army, our own navy, our own air force. They've got all the trimmings of a nation. I mean, they are a nation. We just got to pretend they aren't.
The overwhelming majority just don't want to rock the boat. I've looked into polling in Taiwan on this issue quite a lot. Most people just say, listen, yeah, we would prefer to be autonomous. We would prefer to be independent, for sure. Like, that's understandable. But overall, the current system that we have is much better than what could potentially happen, which is rocking the boat. Okay? No, most people just want the current system that they have. Is
okay, so if we acknowledge that they want the current system and they don't want to rock the boat, does he acknowledge that militarization of the Chinese, of the South China Sea, and specifically the acquirement of the means to invade Taiwan is certainly rocking the boat? And if they don't have something to keep the boats at bay, then whether they want to maintain that autonomy or not could go up into the air.
Fine, let's continue going the way that we're going, and not fuck this shit up. Whereas, you know, Nancy Pelosi's like, I got some other ideas. Okay. I got some different ideas.
As far as I know, the Taiwanese government was pretty happy with Nancy Pelosi visiting. I think it's good for American politicians to have relationships with other foreign politicians and build their own foreign policy independent of the executive branch. I believe that the legislative branch is a check on the executive branch's power, and they need to build their own foreign policy agenda if they want to check them on foreign policy. If they want to say the AUMF is unconstitutional and is not a justification to bomb and kill Soleimani, they have to build their own legislative agenda. They're going to have to visit with people across the world. I would want them to visit with people in Iraq and across the world that we've been engaged in military interventions to get their perspective so it impacts their beliefs. It impacts their agenda. I want them to build the relationships with politicians on the ground. If we want a sustainable, long-term relationship with the Taiwanese, American politicians are going to have to make relationships with Taiwanese politicians. Nancy Pelosi, in a way, ripped the Band-Aid off. And the worst thing that came of it was a military drill. Is it a number one priority for me? No. But I also am not that angry at Pelosi. If I actually have no anger at Pelosi for it.
Anyway, I mean, and
also, can I just say, a 70 to 80-year-old woman, I think 82-year-old woman visiting an island, if that's enough to make you like, I need to fire rockets and missiles and bombs, if that's enough to like inspire you into that, you know, I think there might be. I think this problem is not just the United States. I think this problem is that the other side of this equation could also be completely unhinged on the issue.
Again,
on Taiwan, I reiterated the long-standing U.S. One China policy. That policy has not changed. It's guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, the 6 assurances.
Taiwan's Relations Act, though. What about that? That's something that, because I remember Hasan was not a big fan of that last time I listened to him talk about it.
We do not support Taiwan independence. We remain opposed to any unilateral changes to the status quo by either side. We continue to expect the peaceful resolution of cross-strait differences.
I think China should just take Australia.
Yes.
I think China should be like, all right, you can have Taiwan. Australia is ours.
I mean, if you ask a lot of right-wing people in Australia, that's already happened.
That has already happened, right? Yeah. They did it through immigration.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying. China are in absolutely no rush to annex Taiwan or whatever. Is the U.S. who wants to provoke a conflict in the hope that they can somehow ruin the Chinese economy before it totally surpasses the American economy? That is correct.
Well,
yes.
that's
wild speculation. 100% true. No doubts in my mind. We know that, actually, that America wants a war with its primary trading partner. Absolutely. Yeah. It wants to crash the economy. Joe Biden wants to lose desperately in 2024.
That's what America has in the bag, is like a military strength.
America would never do that.
Invade another country or
no, agitate like any kind of
just literally. Look, I swear to God, I could go into Hasan's chat and I could be like, you know, America at the end of the day would like to put troops on the ground in Yemen. And he'd be like, yep, true, absolutely. Just like, as long as it's America did the, you know, America will do the bad thing, then boom, thumbs up. How do you accept that America wants a war with China and is trying to provoke a war with China? How do you get that? How do you come to that conclusion? Is it the bases that have been in the region for decades? Is it the continuation of the Taiwan Relations Act, which has been the law of the land since 1979? How can he come to that conclusion so concretely and just be facts, true? Okay, whatever.
Any kind of group of individuals that are in a position of power that they placed that...
He just said America would never go to war with China? I thought he said...
...his economy before it totally... China are in absolutely no rush to annex Taiwan or whatever. Is the U.S. who wants to provoke a conflict in the hope that they can somehow ruin the Chinese economy before it totally surpasses the American economy? That is correct.
Well,
yes.
that's what America...
Both Boy and Hasan agreed with that. That America wants to provoke a conflict, wants to provoke a war with the Chinese.
America has in the bag is like a military strength. But,
America
like,
would never do that.
Invade another country or
No, agitate like any kind of group of individuals that are in a position of power.
He's being sarcastic. I don't know if you can't read sarcasm, but he's being sarcastic here.
Or that they placed that would then go and try to drum up support and maybe create any kind of like civil chaos or even all-out war. They would never do that. They've never done that, historically speaking, and they certainly will never do that.
Is that really all his basis is for we're trying to start a war with China? Is we've started wars before? That's his evidence. I mean, that would be American government's planning a war with China and it wants to commit to a war with China. Not just planning for the possibility, but is trying to create a war. That would be a gigantic news story. The press would swarm to Hasan's house. They would say, Hasan, tell us this breaking, crazy story. Tell us, Hasan. And he would tell them, and they would, whoa, and then they would change the news landscape forever. He doesn't have evidence of that. He doesn't know that. He's just kind of guessing because he knows America has invaded countries before.
Surely. And aren't doing that in Taiwan, while Anthony Blinken is like, one nation, two systems.
Do you
We
get
remain
much,
committed to meeting our...
is there much pushback on it?
Like, how do you listen to that Anthony Blinken statement and come away from that thinking America wants a war right now with China?
Yeah, like in Australia, it's like bipartisan, the anti-China stuff. Like you can't find anyone who's...
Dude, it is super bipartisan here as well. Oh my Lord. We're always on a like who fucking hates China more kick. Yeah. Like Joe Biden's like, no, I'll execute the Chinese. Just wait, Jack. And then Donald Trump's like, I've killed so many Chinese. We hate them. Donald Trump literally claims that Joe Biden, because he had like some documents in a facility in Chinatown, that like he was actually working with the Chinese, because he thinks Chinatown, which exists in like every fucking large American city.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
They're everywhere?
They're everywhere. Is technically Chinese. They think it's Chinese soil. Anyway, let's
our responsibilities under the Taiwan Relations Act, including making sure that Taiwan has the ability to defend itself. On Taiwan.
Anyway. But this was shocking for a lot of people who have just like, who don't know anything about American-Chinese relations.
Like Hasan? Sorry, that was mean.
Or like America's foreign policy on China, but...
Like Hasan? Sorry, okay, I did the same joke twice.
Instead have just been like paying attention to how bad China is. So they're like genuinely shocked when they heard this. They were like, what? I can't believe Blinken reiterated like long-standing foreign policy with China like this. What the fuck?
Our video about.
That is true. There are people who kind of stumble on like what, like the One China policy and the Taiwan's Relations Act for the first time.
Point is, Taiwan is an incredibly important island for the United States. All of this together makes China, quote, the only country that has the intent and power to actually challenge the US-led global order and rewrite global rules and norms, something the US has gotten really comfortable doing over the last 70 years. So this is why the US considers China the most consequential strategic competitor for coming decades. And they've created a plan to respond. And in their words, we cannot delay. They give themselves this 10-year window to...
I'm gonna start highlighting stuff in my videos more.
And this is what it looks like.
Okay. By the way, if you guys want to know what my policy in the Asia Pacific is broadly, it feels like, what would you do to counter China? I have no interest in starting any war with the Chinese. In my ideal scenario, trade between the United States and China would still be flourishing. We might not be trading in like military technology like we were during periods of the Cold War when we unfroze with Nixon and we were exploiting the Sino-Soviet split. But I believe that trade should be flourishing. I believe tourism between our two countries should be flourishing. I believe that cooperation on issues like climate change are essential for the prosperity of humans everywhere. And it's part of the reason why I think it's essential that we have a relationship with them open. But I also think that by building a system of alliances in Asia with our partners, we can dissuade any aggression on the territorial integrity of states like Taiwan. I think that would be the right thing to do. Those who want to be part of an alliance against an invasion become part of that alliance. Now, that doesn't mean we put missiles and like nuclear missiles in Taiwan, or need to even put military bases in Taiwan. There should just be a guarantor of security in the region. And I think we can provide that for Japan. I think we have provided very well for Japan. I think we can provide that for South Korea, and I think we can provide that for Taiwan. I have no interest in escalating. I have all interest in protecting our allies, protecting our trade, protecting people who work with us. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Okay, first things first.
I don't know how I'm supposed to feel bad for saying, if you beat up my ally, we'll come into your hood and we will stop you from beating up our ally. I don't know why that's a bad thing.
U.S. military is already very present in Asia. We've got about 8,000 troops in Guam. We've got over 100 bases.
Wait, what is this? By making a stance and say that we can stand with Taiwan, we make sure that they stay democratic. China won't ever attack Taiwan, so this is good. Okay, you lost me there. Anytime you fucking claim that America is like legitimately defending democracy, it's over. Okay, it's a wrap. I will never take you seriously. America does not give a single shred of a fuck about the democratic process. We don't even have a democratic process here in the United States of America. Have you seen?
Wow, it's very brave, very stunning. Democracy's fake.
The
no country's democratic. Democracy's lie.
That it? Have you seen the Electoral College? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's just completely about whatever their strategic interests are. Okay. No, they do.
It's like strategic interests are the primary motivation for all nation states. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I don't think really anybody that's worth their salt would reject that. But I do think that people start exaggerating when they talk about the United States and the commitment to democracy. I think a great example would be Mubarak and Obama. That was a moment when Obama, for America's security interests, the smartest thing to do would be to support Mubarak. That would be the smartest thing to do. For our security interests would be to support Mubarak, the long-standing Egyptian dictator who had been an American ally for decades. But when Arab Spring happened, that's not what Obama did. He pulled the rug from under Mubarak. There were elections. And then a few years later, there was a dictatorship anyway. But in those moments, I think, in those moments of choice, where we do choose that path, I think that's a good thing, and I think it should be encouraged. Also, when we talk about United States, America, right? Just the word, like America. America doesn't care about this. What are we talking about here? Are we talking about Americans? Like, Americans don't care about democracy? Americans don't care about defending Taiwan? Because Americans seem to care a decent amount about defending Ukraine, and I think that was in large part due to the fact that Ukraine is a young, struggling democracy. The majority of Americans still support aid to Ukraine. And that's almost 2 years into a pretty bloody war. The majority of Americans, I think for the first time, we're getting like 50-50, close to a majority of Americans supporting us defending Taiwan. Why is that? Do they just all care about microchips? Or do you think there might be some other interests at play? Ideological interests for the average American. Americans have ideologies. Individuals have ideologies. And I don't think that everybody elected to public office in Congress and the Senate, every single one of them is just thinking microchips, microchips, microchips. I think there's multiple factors at play. Would I say that democracy is a primary motivator and ideology is a primary motivator? No. But I do think it is one of them. One of many. It's just when people say things like we need to defend democracy in the region, and the U.S. is going to say that because it makes them look good, you're taking out so many other contextual reasons for why we're involved. Because if we are only in Taiwan for democracy, then why aren't we sending guns and weapons to the rebels in Myanmar who are fighting against a fascistic military junta? A horrible, horrible military junta that's burning down villages, engaged in ethnic cleansing, has been involved in some of the most horrific atrocities of the 21st century. But we do nothing outside of a few sanctions. But why did those sanctions come out? Why did those few sanctions come out? Because we did have that one factor, ideology, putting a bad taste in our mouths. So we did something, and that was sanctioned a few officials. Was it? And sanctioned a few companies. That was it. Should we have done more? Yeah. Will we do more? Probably not. But it's one factor among many. Ideology is one factor. So yeah, so if anybody dumbs it down and says we're fighting for democracy, that's stupid. But it's also, I don't think ideology plays no part in international affairs.
They fear multipolarity. That's it. That's literally it. Because it's not like China is going to become the single...
Usually you'll see America get really involved when multiple interests intervene. That's where Taiwan is. There's a reason why support for Taiwan amongst the American public and in the media and everywhere has increased in the last 20 years. It's because they democratized, and it makes it a lot easier for Americans to say, yeah, let's go defend Taiwan. Let's go support Taiwan. It makes it a lot easier when it's not a horrible dictatorship engaged in an endless series of purges and butchery.
Force, the hegemon.
But it's also the chips. It's also its location. It's also how much trade passes by close. There's a bunch of other factors that come together on top of that ideological motivation. I would say those other factors might even be more of a motivator than ideological motivation. I would even lean towards that in Taiwan's case. That lead to us intervening or supporting Taiwan, lead to us at least getting involved. Where in other instances where it's just a struggle for democracy, or it might just be one interest at play, like resources or something else, we do nothing or very little.
Power that the United States is, they don't have 800 fucking military bases around the world. They don't have like their own version of a world war and then like the Marshall Plan post World War II. You know what I mean? They can't do all of that. They don't have the...
You're right. China did not have its own version of World War II.
Fucking NATO. They don't even have an interest in it. You can say yet all you want. Yet. Everything you're talking about. Yet. But what if they do? Okay. I like you, I really do, but it's not good to actually be for their independence. I don't agree with the U.S., but by talking like this, you make it seem like you are pro-China. First of all, I am pro-China. Okay, so make no mistake on that front. I am pro-China. I do.
Why was he so bold and proud when he was backed up by his homie boy? But when he's talking to Ethan, he's like, well, actually, you know, maybe when it comes to like, you know, the Taiwan, you know, people and sovereignty, you know, maybe if the people had a vote and the majority of them voted, it would be, you know, okay to support them. But, you know, America, like, why couldn't we have this Hasan when he was talking to Ethan? Yeah, I'm pro-China. Hail Xi Jinping. Why aren't we getting this?
Do not mind multipolarity. I do not fear multipolarity. So on that front, I am definitely pro-China, as pro-China as it gets.
Like,
what? But who are you willing to have be trotted upon in order for China to achieve that? I'm not against China having influence in the world. I'm not against re-examining certain rules in the international order. I'm not against other development banks being started by other countries to help nations develop, making them different trade deals. These are good things. I think that nation states should have a variety of options for trade, commerce, diplomacy, etc. I don't think that China should go to these different countries in the region with a gun saying, your land is mine. Even though multiple international courts have called it bogus, historians call it bogus, the locals call it bogus. I think you can hold both positions.
no, you go.
No, you go. Go. No.
They just got a nicer track record in terms of wars. Like once they start doing more of them, maybe I'll be less pro-China. But like,
fair.
They've done like 2, you know, in like 70 years.
Chosen Reservoir, baby.
Yeah. And one of them was glorious.
Yeah, it was fucking glorious. So, geez, your foreign policy take is so bad. This is like the Crimea stuff in Hong Kong. You can't be a social. I know Hong Kong is famously on fire.
Yeah.
You know, I always check in with Hong Kong to see how bad things are in Hong Kong.
Yo, I would just like to hear Hasan. Like, let's actually break down what has happened in Hong Kong. Whether we can talk about the cops sexually assaulting protesters, or whether we can talk about the people disappearing in the middle of the night, whether we're talking about the hand-picked government candidates. How about this? How about we have a system where Joe Biden gets to pick who gets to be the candidates in the elections? Let's do that. I think that's a fantastic system. Personally, that's great. I think he'd love it. I think Boy would love it, and I would love it. Let's do it. Let's have that. Let's have it. So if you boo the national anthem, you can go to prison. I think that'd be cool. I know Trump would like it. We can make it a bipartisan thing.
Hong Kong, because remember they like, you know, when the Chinese took over, they executed everyone. It was so crazy. It was wild. The only difference and the only thing that I do criticize China on is their lack of their lack of interest in social libertarianism, for sure. I think that I am significantly more pro civil liberties and pro freedom of speech than the Chinese government is. And I don't even make the same kinds of...
It's good to hear this from them, at least. You know, some pushback.
I would say... I don't even make the same kind of excuse that I would make for Cuba, an island that has been constantly under war for, you know, their lack of interest in like free speech. That is absolutely something that I am very critical on with respect to China. But Hasan being shocked that the normies in the chat really don't fuck with his foreign policy takes. No, I'm not shocked at that at all. This is like a big part of what differentiates me from a lot of other I would say left-leaning, left-adjacent content creators in the United States of America. This is why they always say Hasan is so American-centric. Hong Kong is no longer a democracy because of China.
It was so democratic.
Yeah.
It was certainly more democratic than what it is now. Okay, I would like to hear Boy say, like, express the glory of arresting a man for booing the national anthem. I never think I appreciated the true patriotism that came with that, of getting those unpatriotic bastards in the cell. You know, I never really thought about that till now. See, this is why I shouldn't do the sarcasm. Gotta stop it. I get sassy.
Yeah, I know.
Now people are living in like tiny little cages in apartments, you know, like that wasn't a thing before.
Schadenfreude, our Indian chatter who is anti-China, says,
you know, I could do this with like any issue in American politics. Oh yeah, American healthcare is so bad. Every American is getting their head chopped off when they walk into a doctor's office. I can do that to make any number of political issues seem stupid and not that important. But yeah, I do think that the crackdown in Hong Kong was bad.
You can't consider China here to be a harmless victim. Tibet happened. I mean, 1962 war happened. The recent Chinese attack on India happened, and they're just doing this for saber rattling. And they have been interfering in politics in a lot of nations in the neighborhood. And the reason isn't some stupid reason like spreading authoritarian system. They're just doing it their own Washington doctrine. I don't disagree with the last part about this though.
Yeah.
They absolutely are. They do have,
like, I believe that in South America, and I don't know if this is a radical belief as an American, if America's fucking over a country, that country should be able to go to other countries and get allies that support them to make them stop and fight against American coercion. Now that goes against the Monroe Doctrine, but that's, if I was not to hold myself to that standard, I'd be a hypocrite when it came to Asia.
How do I put this gently? I think that it's not as expansionist in the same way that like American foreign policy is, but they definitely are engaging in.
Also, if you're surrounded by American client states, you do have an interest in how they turn out.
Yeah, so you know, I have an interest in how a lot of nation states in the United States, I guess the United States has an interest in how a lot of nation states turn out. Does that mean we can go interfere in their internal politics? Does that mean we can start claiming their land? Okay, when you're surrounded by American allies, you have an interest in how that turns out. Okay, it doesn't mean you can interfere in their politics. And why do a lot of these countries go to the United States? Especially Vietnam in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this a lot about regional powers. They're not superpowers, but regional powers always want to maintain a level of control in surrounding regions.
I don't know if I would just call China a regional power. China's a superpower. China's absolutely a super.
And obviously, the only way you can do that is if you are America's lapdog, like Turkey, for example. Look at what the fuck Turkey's doing in the northern Syrian corridor, and understand that, like, that is totally allowed if you are a NATO country that is totally allowed if America lets you do it. That's it. When you
That is true. It's really bad we let them do that.
are seen at odds with the United States of America's interests in the region, then you can't do that. Look at Israel. Israel's another example. Golan Heights is, again, a piece of Syria that they like have been able to overtake. It's not even in any fucking by any metric Israeli territory. There's nothing Israel about that. So, Hasan, do you think China is the bastion of progress more than the U.S.? No.
That is what he's been saying, to be fair. Like,
I have been secretly. Secretly, I've been maintaining the secret position that China is the bastion of social progress. All right,
bases in Japan, with about 21,000 American troops on the mainland and another 24,000 stationed down here on the Japanese island of Okinawa. Go up to South Korea.
Like, for example, one of the main things I would be critical of American but American soldiers being deployed in Japan is American soldiers have a terrible reputation in a lot of Japanese areas where they're stationed. Particularly on the island of Okinawa, there's been a lot of reports of just like terrible interactions between soldiers and locals. And if the relationship cannot be either maintained well or the locals don't want them there, like, I believe if the Japanese people want them to leave, that they should leave. Period. And once a nation state has overstayed its welcome when it comes to military assistance, it is up to that nation state to skedaddle once told to skedaddle. Just that Japan, the majority of Japanese people don't want American troops to leave. At least I haven't seen any polling data to suggest that. Like, actually, last polling data I saw, Japan, American troops. Well, I know there's certain areas where they're not wanted, but as a majority, oh, here it is. I don't know what this outlet is, though. More Japanese people want bigger role in U.S. security alliance. Oh, this is pay locked anyway. What's the next one? 2/3 of people in Japan in favor of Japanese strengthening defense. This is another question. This is the different question. Okay, well, I guess we're not getting it right now.
And you'll find 22,000 U.S. troops. And then you've got the U.S. Navy, who operates out of this port in Singapore. This has been the status quo in Asia for decades, and it has been the way that the U.S. has ensured security for its allies. And it's kind of mostly worked to help secure American interests and deter conflict. The U.S. has maintained strong alliances in this region. And frankly, the Pentagon has kind of been distracted with...
Yeah, look at all the saber rattling China's doing. Did you see that?
But it's also funny, like, ensuring their security. It's like they must be taken over by America to make sure they're safe from being taken over.
How is invading Taiwan or threatening to invade Taiwan ensuring security? How is whatever? I don't want to.
Someone else.
I don't know why when China does something, it's just ensuring security. But when local nation states in Asia make a relationship with the United States to defend their interests, to defend their borders, to defend their countries, that's different. That's bad.
What's the Navy? I think the American foreign policy position is literally considering the Philippines as like an unmovable, like, military cruiser.
Yeah.
They literally treat the Philippines as like, especially with like the recent.
He just described the concept of a military air base, like anywhere you would station jets. Okay, well,
elections and recent elections and the new form of governance in the Philippines, they consider that to be the unsinkable aircraft carrier.
Is that what I haven't heard any terms what he's talking about. Has anybody heard that term before? He might be. I just might be completely unfamiliar with like calling the Philippines that. But I think he's just describing air bases. I don't know what would be different than having just the Philippines covered in air bases.
And you know, it's great. It's wonderful. But yeah, they say an unsinkable aircraft carrier. That's what they consider it. But you know, That's not saber rattling. That's just
It is a thing? Okay. I haven't heard that term before.
ensuring that the client states have security.
Other things. 2 wars that happened in the Middle East over the past 20 years.
My fellow citizens, my fellow citizens, my fellow citizens.
But as those conflicts wind down, and as China militarizes, the Department of Defense says that this status quo, all of these troops in Asia, it's not enough. They talk about this new kind of deterrence. Integrated deterrence. The only kind of military posture that will actually keep China at bay. And this is what it looks like. The smallest part of the strategy has to do with American bases. They're going to reopen a base in Guam and move some troops there. But the majority of this strategy has to do with American allies in Asia. Allies that are in lockstep with the US's goal to deter and contain China. The Pentagon calls partnering with its allies the center of gravity for this strategy. So let's start with Japan, one of the US's closest allies.
By the way, that is quite literally what I described earlier, just partnering with allies. The less troops we need to have in the region and the less bases we need to have in the region, the better.
The region. Japan is a country that is deeply concerned about a more powerful China, with its massive navy and its ambitions to control Taiwan. And it's very easy to forget.
Why does Japan care about Taiwan?
Wait, what do you mean, dude?
Well, Japan... Okay, well, you know what? I want to hear their explanation. I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Like, oh, Japanese homeland of Taiwan.
Yeah, no, they care about it. Just don't worry about it. They care. They care. Maybe it's because
Australia cares about it. So, like, if Australia feels enough of a connection to Taiwan, I'm sure Japan does.
Yeah, dude, they care because they hate the undemocratic Chinese rule. They were really
okay. Now that neither of them have showed a single IQ point, here's why they care. It's the Senkaku Islands. It's an island chain right here that Japan claims, and they very, 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 very much believe it is theirs. Most of the world seems to basically recognize that. China doesn't. Since China claims Taiwan, this is how the claim works. Since China claims Taiwan, and so they also get the territorials around Taiwan, territorial waters, and since they get territorial waters around Taiwan as well, they also get the Senkaku Islands, which they also claim. So you can see why Japan would be interested. And look, if China takes Taiwan, it's going to be 10 to 20 times harder for them to defend their claims in the Senkaku Islands. That's why they care. That's one reason. Also, if like Taiwan in this defensive line that they were showing the map of earlier is a pretty like key part. And so if the strategy of deterrence is to be enforced, if Taiwan falls, it's like blowing a gigantic hole in that line. Those are probably the 2 major reasons. But the Senkaku Islands is I think the one that most people should probably be informed about, because not talked about much.
Critical of like the original Taiwan governance when it was just like a genocidal military dictatorship. They were like, Taiwan, why are you doing?
No, there's this really weird kind of, I don't know if it's a cult, but it's like a fringe political movement in Taiwan that believes that the Taiwanese government that rules over Taiwan is illegitimate. And okay, now you're thinking like, oh, so they support China. No, they support Japan. They're a very small fringe group, but they believe that actually the Japanese government or occupation of Japan never really technically legally ended, and that it's an illegal occupation, and therefore they only respect like the Japanese shogunate or something. It's very ridiculous nonsense. I don't know if it's a shogunate specifically, but like the Japanese imperial government. It's very weird. They'll like march around with like Japanese imperial symbols. I don't know if you guys know about this. Let me Google the Taiwanese Japanese loyalists. Is this it? Nope. Where is it? Where is it? I can't find them. But they're a very weird group.
Doing this, come on,
we have
guys.
to contain you, Taiwan. Or
yeah,
else
that's what they kept saying. Same with South Korea, as a matter of fact. When South Korea also was a genocidal military dictatorship, and then changed its structure of governance from that to 6 chaeballs in a suit jacket. which is very different now and totally again very democratic. Well, they have an incel president, which is cool.
Yeah.
I do think that's cool to have like a guy who literally ran on like women fucking suck candidacy. Important to note that the 11 dash line that he calls the Chinese claim is actually a claim that Taiwan also advances Lamau.
Technically, yeah. I mean, some of the islands it's complicated, but they do claim a lot of the islands in the area as well. That's true. They're not going to do anything about it, and they can't do anything about it.
Where is the
closest ally?
Well, they also there's a funny little trick that maybe me as a Turkish person I'm a little bit more aware.
Wait, 11 dash line? I thought it was. Okay, well, never mind.
Of that, like Western forces always utilize. They'll constantly say, Taiwanese airspace, and China is flying on Japanese and Taiwanese airspace. And if you don't really pay attention to the map, you will look at that and go, oh, wow, that's really fucked up that they're flying in Taiwanese airspace, until you fucking realize that it's literally the border. It's the fucking landmass. The Chinese landmass where it ends and the water begins is...
I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say here, but he's just like wrong. The Chinese violations of Taiwanese airspace has gotten more and more brazen in recent years, with them quite literally going straight up to the islands, the main islands, the air around the main island, not the tiny islands that are near the border of China, but the main big island of Taiwan. They'll go way up to it and go right over the line and come back. And they're probing it. They're probing its air defense to see like when it gets picked up, when it doesn't get picked up, and to see how fast Taiwan scrambles jets to respond. I mean, Taiwan has to scramble jets constantly because of this. It's actually put a strain on the Taiwanese Air Force. So I don't know what he's talking about. Like, it's only happening exactly on the border. That's not... No.
Basically fucking not Chinese airspace, according to a lot of Westerners. Why am I saying this?
Okay, I mean, I think like the whole video is going to be like this. All it's going to be just me getting annoyed at these types of mistakes. So I think I'm done here. We did this for like 27 minutes. I'm happy they could teach me about the 11 dash line and Taiwan and China defending its airspace. I learned a lot. These are gigantic political commentators. Future is bright. God, you know what? Actually, is Supreme still awake? Is he still awake? I need to check. I want to call him. Hey, I'm on stream. I'm letting you know I'm on stream, okay?
Okay, good thing I said hello and not the other word I usually greet you with.
Yes, not the other word.
That could have been bad.
I don't like those people. But, as I was saying, fuck you for sending me that video. What was that? That was like next level ignorance.
Now you know, right?
That was not that. Look, I thought I was gonna have to, like, I don't know, like when I go into a conversation about like a geopolitical issue, I try to train for it like it's the Olympics. I really want to make sure that I don't slip up on like a tiny piece of information and make a fool of myself, misrepresent what some people somewhere might believe, because a lot of these people just don't have a voice in the room. I've noticed that when talking to Ukrainians, how angry they are to see some of the coverage when a bunch of people who don't know what they're talking about are talking about conflict, talking about the war. And this happens with everybody, I assume. With Taiwanese people, they're probably really annoyed when they see people saying ignorant stuff to millions of people. But this was not the Olympics. This is the Paralympics. What was that?
Listen, man, it gets worse too. Like, you ducked out early, but it just gets worse and worse.
What? How does it get worse?
Oh, like I think at one point he even straight up says, like, dude, if America left, China wouldn't do anything. Like, China wouldn't go after Taiwan or something. There's like some comment he has in there. He just talks about, like, he makes it out like China is just bullied by the United States and, doesn't have any problems with any of its neighbors. It's just rough.
Or if he does have a problem with the neighbor, it's a U.S. colony state, and that's why it has a problem with its neighbor. Like Vietnam, of course.
Yeah. He does mention that. He's like, oh yeah, because Vietnam fucking loves America.
It does. It does love America.
He's not being sarcastic. He's annoyed about it.
Yeah.
And I think there's one comment that a chatter makes, and they just like laugh about it, and then they don't address it. That's the best part. I can't remember what the comment is, but it's like a similar comment to all the other ones about, like, dude, like, why are you defending this? This, that, or the other. China did this. and then they make some remark that is not related at all, but it's kind of just like a pun, and then they kind of just like uncomfortably sit there for a second and let the video play again.
I'll notice they'll talk about like China bullying its neighbors, and then they'll just go like ha ha ha, and then they'll just move on as if they thought laughing was a point, like they countered it in some way.
My favorite thing is like America does, hey, China does this bad thing. And then it'll say, well, America does it too. That's why I'm pro-China, as pro-China as it gets. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. You're either like against these actions or, you know, if you're anti-America, then you have to be anti-China. If these are the things America does that makes you anti-America, if this other country does them too, like you can't support that country.
Man.
Anyway,
that
really opened.
This,
go ahead.
The thing that spoiled me on, do you know about I wasn't really back and forth with Hasan, but you know about my interaction with Hasan on the issue of Taiwan?
What happened?
So what happened was I saw him say the thing about escalation of Taiwan's Relations Act, and it rubbed me the wrong way because I just thought it was ignorant. You know, if you knew about the Taiwan's Relations Act, then you would know that these types of weapons deals are pretty common. They've been commonplace for like 40, 50 years. And this was an example of our Congress being a check on the executive branch when it came to Taiwan, where the Carter administration didn't care, and our legislative branch in a way. And I think this is good. This is a good show of our checks and balances when it comes to our foreign policy. Wish our Congress would do it more. Decided, no, we will not allow you to abandon Taiwan in pursuance of this relationship with the Chinese. And so we will sign this legislation on top of this relationship we're trying to build with the Chinese to defend Taiwan. And we've had this for like 40, 50 years. And he calls it an escalation to continue it. And so I expressed to him that it wasn't an escalation. I just described why. I posted, you know, the original legislation, described why. And after that, not only did I get blocked, but he referred to me as like a ruthless neoliberal on his channel. Okay. And then later, when I interviewed Anastasia about a bunch of issues, but Hasan came up in one of the interviews that we published, and he talked about how, you know, she didn't like how he talked about the war. That got me banned from Hasan's Discord that I never even posted in. They like searched for me, found me, and kicked me out. It's such a strange community over there. But the thing I've noticed is a lot of the people are like bleeding out of it. And I don't mean like his viewership is like necessarily like dropping, but I run into a lot of people like, yeah, I used to watch Hasan, but you know, I don't know, man. He talked about other people like that. It wasn't really super honest, or he didn't really make his point well, or I've noticed that a lot of my viewers are people who used to watch Hasan but have like soured on him.
Have grown up.
The Ukraine stuff really, I think, soured a lot of them in my community.
It's so funny because, like, you know, I was in DTG when he was reacting to Destiny's Jubilee appearance, and Hasan starts talking about how all these other creators have echo chamber hug boxes. Can you imagine?
Really? Did he actually?
Yes. Yeah. Like, I don't know of anybody that runs a tighter echo chamber. Like, this dude is running the Iron Curtain, you know? It's true, so fitting.
It's so weird listening to him say, yeah, I'm pro-China in this conversation with Boy. And then when he's talking to Ethan, it's like, well, you know, I mean, I'd say, where's that same oomph? He must know that the audience he's talking to is different when he's on with the show with Ethan. And so I mean, honestly, it feels like he's kind of hiding his power level.
So definitely. So again, like when I had that conversation with Destiny, I was just under the impression that Hasan was just like some dumbass Bernie bro. Like he was just an idiot, like who just wanted social progress or something, and who is like vaguely sort of dupable by any sort of leftist aesthetic or something like that, right? Who's going to be somewhat sympathetic and charitable to like Russia or China or something, but that he wasn't a full-on tanky, that he fell for some Russian propaganda specifically about like the referendums in Crimea or something, but I didn't realize he was like this committed, you know. This video opened up my eyes. And then there was another one in the video that you were watching before with me and Destiny. Anastasia comes in and starts yelling at me like, why are you carrying water for this guy? And like, you know, listen, a big part of that is just me checking my own biases because I hate the guy, but and just trying to get my best.
By the way, can I just say, I know you've probably, I don't know if you've gotten any compliments on this. I just want to say that I do appreciate you making sure to check yourself on someone you disagree with, because it's good to have somebody in the room to push back on that, because in this space of political itch, there's not many people who really like Hasan or ever will stick up for Hasan.
Yeah, but I definitely understand after being linked a couple videos, like I definitely understand Anastasia's, you know, like why she was so pissed, and I, you know, yeah, I would have been the same way, but yeah. definitely opened my eyes. I think it's fine to say he's a tanky.
The thing that really I think kicked the bucket. I think I've been very charitable to Hasan. I try my best not to read into people's intentions. That's something I've been trying to work on for myself, because I think that a lot of my, a lot of misunderstanding can come from assuming people's intentions, and so I try to like think of all the possible interpretations of what people say. But the thing that really spoiled me was when he said that the targeting of the Kerch Bridge was a war crime, and then he doubled down on it multiple times.
I don't know anything about that. You'll have to tell me about it.
So, you know about the targeting of the Kerch Bridge, or are you familiar with the Kerch Bridge? So,
no idea.
There's a bridge that was built by Putin to connect Russia proper to Crimea. It was made in, I think, 2015, 2016. It was like a big Putin moment, you know? It'd be like if Trump finished the wall and got to take pictures with it. That's what it was for Putin. It was a big testament. Definitely when you see that a lot of Russia doesn't have a lot of great infrastructure. It was a actually successful infrastructure project, and it just so happened to be built illegally in occupied territory, right? So it connects Russia to Crimea, and since this war has started, it has been the main artery for supply for the Russian army in the south. It probably transports upwards of like 80% of the weapons, or like 60 to 80%, something in that range of the weapons that transport into southern Ukraine, and has been used to transport artillery shells, tanks, soldiers, trucks, BMP, like anything you can think of, it has been transported along that line. And considering the fact that the Ukrainians are launching a counteroffensive in the direction of where Crimea is, they came to the conclusion it would make sense to disrupt their supply lines. And so what they did is they've targeted the bridge multiple times. Once it was with, naval drones. Other times it's with like storm shadows and missiles. Once it was like I think it was maybe a truck full of explosives. They've really done their best to ding up the bridge, and they've succeeded in a few instances, failed in others. But when it happened, and this has happened multiple times, he said it was a war crime because civilians used the bridge. That's not how that war crimes get classified.
So is bombing any bridge ever a war crime?
Under this definition, yes.
That's hilarious.
It is funny. No military historian would back this up. No international human rights lawyer would back this up. I'm such a fucking tool. I DM'd a few of my friends who are international human rights lawyers, and one that even specializes specifically in violations of war crimes.
Oh,
yes, no, bridges. And all of them said, no, this is stupid. It makes no sense. On its face, it makes no sense. But he doubles down on it. And so when the bridge was attacked the second time, he kind of basically both sides using the bridge.
Good Lord. I don't know what to say. Yeah.
I don't
have enough time in a day.
How could you possibly see a bridge that is transporting the majority of the weapons that kill Ukrainians, whether it be through extrajudicial executions, the bombing of cities, the targeting of actual civilian infrastructure, which has happened in this war? And I've seen in this war, it's a real thing when they target the electrical grid, and they'll do it specifically, and they say this publicly, to freeze out the Ukrainians, and the idea to break their will. And they're open about this. That is what targeting civilian infrastructure is. Not
How did he feel about Bucha?
I actually don't know, but I don't think he's a denier. There are a few people who are deniers. I know Jackson Hinkle is a Bucha denier, and I know a few others, but he's not one of them, as far as I know.
Does he call it a war crime, or is he only pro bridges?
I think if he was asked, he'd call it a war crime. I think it's just he wants to, and this is a problem I have with a lot of streamers. It isn't just a Hasan problem. There are a lot of people who believe that they need to have an opinion on everything. When any news story happens, they need to have an opinion. They need to have a quick opinion, and it needs to sound confident. It needs to sound snappy. And so people kind of will just let word vomit come out on any number of topics. And I think that's probably what happened with the bridge. He didn't know what he was saying. He streams like 24/7. And so he's talking about everything all the time. And so he didn't have knowledge about war crimes. He didn't really know maybe about the Kerch Bridge, what it was being used for. And he just blurted it out. And when people were like, no, what's wrong with you? He doubled down because, well,
that's what he does.
That's what he does.
Yeah. That guy has the most fragile ego of anybody I've ever seen in my life. Biggest, strongest man with tiniest ego.
I just really wish he put more effort before talking about these wars that are affecting so many people. I mean, he is the biggest political streamer on the platform. I mean, I think he's the biggest political streamer, period. And,
yeah, ever.
And so it's just unbelievably annoying that we got stuck with this schmuck.
Yeah, it sucks that there's like, it's these issues. You know what? I could deal with Hasan being the biggest political streamer if there weren't wars, you know, happening. Like if there wasn't like a major war between, you know, one of our like major nuclear adversaries and a smaller country that they're bullying, and things heating up. You know what I mean? In the Strait of Taiwan right now. God, I fear the worst over the next 10 years. It's going to get bad, I think.
Parrot's Nest just said he's a smart guy with some bad takes. What do you think to that?
No, I think he's a fucking idiot who stumbled on some easy good takes, like Americans should have health care. And like, it sucks when some people are super rich and some people are super poor. Wow. What a brilliant man. God, what a principled, you know, moral paragon of the world. Yeah.
This is the thing.
I think that's what I call it.
I think pretty left wing. I think if we listed out all the beliefs that we had policy wise in the United States, me and Hasan would probably come to agreeing on 75, maybe 80% of things. I do genuinely believe that. But I don't think that he researches the topics that he talks about before he talks about them. At least when it comes to the stuff I've seen him talk about that I care about. I don't know what it is for the other topics, but I would imagine if he's done it for just a few times that I actually sit down to watch his stuff, imagine it happens with other stuff as well. I think foreign policy for him is a particularly weak area.
Super big blind spot.
Super big blind spot. And I think this is not just a blind spot for him. I think Hasan is the main target of this criticism, but I think it's a blind spot wider for the American left. I think the American left for the last 30 years or more, I think a lot of it in the Cold War too, has basically actioned as participated in foreign policy mostly as an obstructionist. We need to stop the intervention in Kuwait. We need to stop the war in Afghanistan. We need to stop the war in Iraq. We need to stop supplying the Saudis in Yemen. We need to stop this. We need to stop that. But when you ask progressives what type of world should America be involved in building, it mostly seems to just be America shouldn't be involved. And so when we have these moments of moral clarity, where the Russians are engaged in a war of national annihilation to erase the Ukrainian nation state off the map, to erase the Ukrainian identity off the map, to conquer them, to bring them back into the clutches of a reactionary fascist state bent on fulfilling the Russian idea of Russia's destiny of countering the degenerate West and rebuilding its influence in the post-Soviet world. There is no one in Europe and any of the serious governments, including the Hungarians, who I think would look at the situation and come away with the conclusion, you know what? This is so bad. This is so terrible. But my conclusion is when they take out the weapon shipments coming in to fight against that, that's the war crime I'm going to complain about when I have people's attention. That's what really, I think, angers me, because there's so much atrocity here. You just walk around and you will. I remember once I was in Hasan. It was right after the Novokakhovka Dam exploded. You know about the Novokakhovka Dam explosion?
Listen. If something happened in Ukraine, you can just assume that I have not kept up on the war at all.
There was a dam a big dam that was blown up. It was made during the Soviet Union. That ended up, it was most likely, most of the evidence points towards the Russians doing it, including like photographs of like cars like packed full of explosives. But the dam exploded and it flooded Hasan on both banks of the river, drowning elderly people and disabled people in their homes, killing about 20,000 animals. It was a gigantic humanitarian disaster. It wiped out the Hasan Reservoir, and a lot of people use the word ecocide, which I don't know if that's a word I'm going to use, but it certainly horrifically damaged the Ukrainian environment and drowned a lot of people in their homes. It was a horrible disaster. We go down there while the flooding is still pretty heavy. We can actually, the water is in the city of Hasan. It's on the edges by the time we get there. And the whole time I'm there, they're just shelling the city endlessly. They're shelling the response efforts. While when I was filming with rescue workers, they were actively shelling the rescue operation. all trying to go out and help people who are in their homes drowning. My friend John Jones, he's in his late 60s, British expat. He was driving a boat while we were filming with him. Shell falls, hits on the ground, tears into his upper thigh, lower abdomen. Only thing that saves him is his pelvis. Would have torn up his intestine. And later they post video of that war crime on Telegram with rock music saying we were like Ukrainian special forces trying to create a bridgehead. That type of brutality that got like no mention in the media because that type of stuff's common. That type of stuff. The amount of evidence we had was overwhelming because we had their footage, our footage. That was not common. But that type of atrocity, that is unbelievably common. I remember I was walking down the street in the same city. I think it was the day after, and I found what I assumed to be a homeless drunk, to put it bluntly, who had a gigantic gash in his face. You could see his skull. Somebody barely bandaged it up, probably at the site of the strike, and he's just walking around begging for money with his skull showing. And nobody's doing anything. And I'll go to them and I'll be like, "Are we gonna bring this guy inside?" Like, we can't force him, and he wouldn't go in because he was a homeless drunkard and probably didn't have much sense. But that type of brutality has been unbelievably normalized. And so when there's a moment to highlight that type of brutality, and he spends it not even highlighting brutality, actively trying to undermine the resistance against this type of shit, it's unbelievably infuriating to know that he speaks to more people.
Like one of the most legitimate and benign destructions, right? Like it's a fucking bridge. It's not a hospital. It's not a center with a bunch of people. Yeah.
Unbelievably frustrating. And I just know that like one Hasan stream reaches more people than like all of the people in the Ukrainosphere trying to highlight this type of violence either on Twitch and the ones that I walk in, and like all of them to get put together. One stream will reach more people than that. And there's just so little effort put into it.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. I mean, like, yeah, he's live all the time because it collects him money, right? Like that's how he gets paid, the ad revenue.
Well, I'm live because I collect money too. Everybody, all streamers are live because they collect money. Most streamers are live because they want to collect money.
Well, I mean, like he's live as much as possible.
That is true. That is a problem, and I'm starting to lose respect.
He prioritizes ad revenue over being informed, right?
If somebody's playing video games for 12 hours, right? You've learned how to play the video game. It's one thing. Streaming news for 12 hours, I even think my 6-hour streams are too much. That's why I'm trying to leverage it more with video games and other stuff. But you just don't have that much to say, and you just don't know that much. No one does. You could get Noam Chomsky or the most Richard, whoever, and you could sit them in front of a camera and get them to talk for 12 hours. They will run out of shit to say, and their knowledge will eventually become shallow when they shift to certain topics. But if they have a motivation to never say, well, I don't know, because that's embarrassing, or because you can't really make any content out of that, you'll just start spouting shit. Or it's a lot of it also, I think, is they learn a little bit, and then they assume they know a lot. What's that called again? You know, the curve?
Dunning-Kruger.
The Dunning-Kruger effect. I think a lot of it's that as well. Definitely when it came to the Taiwan thing, I think it was the Dunning-Kruger stuff.
You know, I mean, like if you're covering news all day, it is a really good way to like start building a, you know, like a personal encyclopedia inside your head so that you can be knowledgeable, right? Over a couple of years, like you'll be able to retain a lot of facts that'll give you a lot of context on a lot of things.
This job has helped me do that. But
oh yeah, sorry, there's got to be time for history. There's got to be time for, you know, there's got to be time for people. Like, I think one of the greatest advantages that a streamer has is that they get to pull a lot of people on to potentially debate or discuss things, because there's no way one person could know everything necessary, right, for a given thing. Like you have to have somebody, or you need another perspective to get you to go and like look something up and be like, is that true? And then you go look it up, and you know, potentially you can change your mind or be, you know, even more informed, have even more context on a thing. I think that's his biggest problem. He doesn't have time for history. Or, you know what? I even get the idea that he is decently informed on a lot of stuff. It's just values. His values are different. Somebody points out, well, wait, what about the fact that China bullied people here, there, and the other? America does it too, right? It's his values. He knows about that. It's not a matter of him not being informed. It's the fact that he, like, it's cool to him that his side, that he's aesthetically LARPing, right? He's like a communist LARPer is winning. And that's what he cares about, is that they stand a fighting chance by doing this thing that's also bad.
Man, that logic makes so little sense to me, because if you acknowledge that multiple nation states do this, then there should be players to contain the United States when the United States does it, and there should be players and a system to contain China when China does it. But I feel like he never takes those next steps. Like, okay, America does it, China does it. How do we limit it? His worldview seems to be, in my opinion, at least when it comes to this issue, is, man, that sure sucks, that war, huh? Well, we're not going to do shit about it.
It's multipolarity. I mean, he does say specifically in that video, right? He wants multipolarity. He does want to have, like, superpowers that are capable of checking the United States. The problem is the only countries that are capable of doing that are prospective empires. If he brands himself an anti-imperialist, you cannot support Russia and you cannot support China. They don't give a fuck about checking America from bad actions.
I will say, until recently, oh God, this doesn't work anymore. Until recently, I would use the example of, like, look, there are examples of Russia and China actually doing things that I think are productive on the world stage. My example up until now was Russia protecting Armenia, and I can't use it anymore. Fuck. I gotta find a new example. Because Russia just abandoned Armenia, and Nagorno-Karabakh is getting wiped off the face of the earth, and there's a really big fear of ethnic cleansing, and they're doing nothing. And they're open about
Armenia.
Yeah,
I thought you said our media.
No, Armenia.
Okay. Jesus. Yeah, so I guess something broke out. I haven't been paying attention. What happened?
There was a war that started yesterday, man.
And how long did that last?
A day. It's over. Azerbaijan won. Armenia lost.
What happened?
Nagorno-Karabakh.
It's like a soccer game. What the fuck?
Nagorno-Karabakh got hammered by Azerbaijani artillery. It seemed like their positions were falling apart. Over 200 civilians died. This was after 5 or 6, I think it was about 10 to 11 months of blockading it. The blockade got slowly worse and worse over time. They didn't let any food in. They didn't let any medicine in. People were starting to die of starvation. And that's when they decided to launch the military invasion, when, there was no medicine to treat the injured. It was the worst possible state. And in a day, it crumbled, and now 120,000 people are probably going to go into exile and flee into Armenian-controlled territory in a mass exodus. There's now rumors that because it seems that the government there just basically gave up. They said, look, we see the writing on the wall. If we drag this out, more of us are going to die. We throw the towel. Because there was no security guarantor. Russia wasn't going to do anything. America wasn't going to do anything. Europe isn't going to stop buying Azerbaijani gas and exports. So they're fucked.
So what happened? Did Armenia cede territory to Azerbaijan? Or?
Well, technically they didn't cede anything because it was never recognized, this region, as part of Armenia, but it was dominated by Armenians. What's most likely going to happen is that the population there, the population that was living under this kind of independent, democratically elected local governance that was autonomous from Azerbaijan, going to lose that. Azerbaijan's going to take over, and from there, I have a lot of fears of violence from the Azerbaijani military, which has a lot of human rights violations and has engaged in beheadings, extrajudicial executions of both civilians and POWs. So I'm fearful of how they're going to behave. And there's been a lot of rhetoric that I would say from Azerbaijan that is ethnic cleansing-y, but putting out like postage stamps of like cleaning, like somebody using a pressure washer to clean out Nagorno-Karabakh of the gunk, right? Who's the gunk? What is the gunk? It's stuff that makes me very concerned that they're going to basically engage in a campaign of ethnic cleansing. Either because the people flee out of fear of the violence or people being forced to flee. But we'll see. Hopefully that doesn't come to pass, but there's been no security guarantees given by the Azerbaijani government after they were requested by the Armenian government months ago. So, I mean, their fate is in Azerbaijan's hands now. I mean, as of right now, the people can't even flee if they wanted to because they've got the whole place surrounded. So it's all about whether or not they're even going to give them a humanitarian corridor. It would make sense for them to do so, but technically they could just not do it too, which that's probably the worst case scenario, but I doubt they're going to do that because it would make more sense to just kind of let them all run away, I guess.
Well, how you doing, man?
How am I doing? In what way? Like,